Okay, how about that? Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? We need to make sure Skype caller is also not, or Skype active is not muted. They're okay. Anyhow, I've messed that up totally. Um, so we should be good to go. Welcome to our post-show roundup. With me tonight is Jolly, my right-hand man. How you doing, Jolly?
Good, great.
Great. Also here tonight is Numidius.
Hey there.
Androsa from this morning. Androsa, wrong shot, honey. Nope.
Look at all those
one of
people
them.
who claim to be Hindros. There's only one real one around here.
Yes, how are you doing?
Doing good. Thanks, Jay.
Okay. And you don't have chat on your window for some reason. Okay. And let's move on to Soulhawk. How you doing this evening, Soul?
Good. Happy to be here. Lots of interesting stuff to talk about.
Yeah, lots and lots. And last but not least, Joshua.
I'm fantastic. I enjoyed the stream we watched today, and I'm looking forward to talking about a lot of things that they covered that I think are going to be important to our future.
Great. So I think I'll get started with just a couple of cleanup notes. You know, Chris Roberts opened it up. It was very short, and his closing statement was so short I didn't actually get to hear any of it as we were getting ready on this stream. So, you know, he just basically noted how big the community was, that the Twitch peaked around 37,000 viewers, and that they will be uploading, as they have time, segments to YouTube. But stay with us instead, and we'll give you a rundown of everything. Who needs to get a haircut?
Oh, God.
I got a haircut last night, so my hair should not be long. And if you didn't catch it, 3.15 was pushed to wave 1, even though for concierge and subscribers, even though it's buggy as all get out. So, with that said, let's go around the room. Jolly, what were your first impressions on CitizenCon 2021?
I thought it was very good. Bear in mind, it's tough to do a virtual con, be the same as an in-life con, but good job on our side, period.
Yep. Even though they completely missed the mark on their closing ceremonies, which for a pre-can presentation doesn't make any sense. Nam, what are your first thoughts?
In a way, it was refreshing that they just talked about they were a bit more realistic about what's coming. We didn't get any demos of sandworms we're never going to see. The stuff that was talked about and shown is things we can reasonably expect to get in the not too distant future. So
over the next couple of years.
I find that reassuring because, you know, how long ago was that sandworm presentation? You know, I'm glad to see that they're trying less of the wow factor and more here's what's coming.
Yeah. Hendrosa, what were your thoughts on CitizenCon this year? So your first impressions.
You know, I think it was really good. You know, they opened up very, very strong. The only, I guess, really down point for me was they lost a lot, including me. They kind of lost a lot of viewers as they front loaded with all the great stuff, and then they kind of slowly started getting into a lot of technical stuff, and a lot of it was just very dry. It was just very, okay, this is the next part, which I get it, and everything. But I think if they spaced it out, they would have held a lot more viewership for a longer period of time. But the content was great. They got into a lot of good content out there. So
I would make the argument that for technical people like me, some of those technical things laid bare some real interesting nuggets, some of which are kind of scary and problematic. So, and we're going to talk about those today and kind of analyze some of the things that may have been a little bit over everybody's head, just because it was a very technical, dry presentation, but was helpful for those of us that are super technical. Soulhawk, what were your first impressions?
You know, it was a lot of interesting content. Some of the technical stuff kind of went above my head, but for the most part, really happy with the content. I do agree they kind of front-loaded what most would consider the good stuff, and then kind of left off into less interesting things as far as the masses are concerned. But overall, I'm really happy with it, especially for a virtual con.
Okay. And Josh, last but not least, what were your initial thoughts?
So I enjoyed it. There was a lot of technical things that I'm looking forward to some other input on. I think I followed. I think I understood. I was trying to get a few things done around the house at the same time, but I found myself running back the screen trying to make sure I could understand it. I thought for a CitizenCon, I would much prefer to have this than to have nothing. And I really hope that some of the things they showed come true rather quickly because they would be that big difference we've been looking for.
I would not hold my breath in that space. I think it's going to be months and years on a lot of that. Okay. So I think the con went really well, and it was very informative, even though some of the information, once we explain it, is probably not going to be exactly what people thought it was. But that's okay. At least we now know where we stand. I think that it was the fact that we didn't hear anything about Squadron 42 was a little telling, and kind of has me a little concerned because I thought, in theory, they should be looking at release this Christmas for Squadron 42, I would have thought.
You would think so.
But when we come back, we're going to go to a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to start going through Life in the Verse with Jolly and kind of tell you guys what was going on during that segment, which was a lot of cool information and interesting stuff. So with that said, we'll be back here in a couple of minutes after these commercial breaks.
Hello, fellow citizens. It's Joni here from HangarReady. If you've missed any of our podcasts, check us out at youtube.hangarready.com to watch previous episodes. We also have tutorials on how to play the game. Please like and subscribe on our channel. See you in the verse.
The verse is unpredictable and dangerous, but it rewards those who are prepared. Armor, weapons, and equipment, the Armory has all the information you need to stay ahead and never be caught off guard again. Visit the Armory at armory.thespacecutter.space and never worry about equipment again. Fly safe, fly ready, and I will see you in the Armory.
You ever feel alone in the verse? Need someone to lend you a hand? Join ADI. Go on now.
Okay. Hey guys, welcome back. Hopefully you enjoyed those wonderful commercials. Obviously we're sponsored by ADI since we all are part of ADI. And Jolly, talk to me about Life in the Verse and what all did they cover today?
Great coverage by the RSI team. The Pyro, which is coming, I'm not sure when. My guess is 4.0. Just a guess, though. but that should work out pretty well. We still have routes you need to take in order to go through a wormhole, but there will be multiple routes they pointed out to us. Some may be for the, if you want to be a law-abiding, get in there, or a criminal getting in there. And other side notes, you'd be able to get in there whatsoever. The jump point has been confirmed to be near the area of microtech. So in future patches, when you make your selection of where I do want to be, you may want to consider microtech as opposed to more centrally located right now, Lorville. So we'll wait and see on that one. But for right now, just keep it in the back of your mind.
I'm going to be honest with you. I think that we may want to move over to microtech in 3.15 and start basing out of there so we get used to it. I know.
Not 15, maybe 16, 17. I'd agree with you, but
Maybe.
I think a little bit before microtech's going to be, or Pyro's going to be available to us. So for
At
right
a
now,
minimum, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
no,
Go ahead,
no,
Dom.
No, as I was saying, is based off what we saw, optimistically Q3 next year we might see Pyro. Probably after that. So yeah.
Yeah. But definitely in the next couple patches, we'll probably have to switch over to new batteries
Yep.
as the primary.
Yeah, I agree, but for right now, I'm preferring Lorville as opposed to microtech. In the future, I agree. When Pyro is available, Micro may be a little bit better than the other ones. Pyro stations range from it was really, they did a magnificent job, in my opinion, in explaining the Pyro verse as opposed to the Stratton verse. But the gangs are in charge of the security over there, as opposed to currently what we have in Stanton is you're either Hurston or Crusader security. Now you go over there. It's a matter of I'm part of a gang. Gang reputation comes into play. That's really interesting. I like that idea. It's a very big plus. Like the point that they can have now a them and us type of thing. If you're a pro pirate or anti-pirate, which system you want to be in, you can raid the other ones and stuff like that. That's a big positive all overall. It's amazing how it worked, created great. The environments over there. It was really nice to see how they went ahead and spent time explaining to us how they created these stations, how what efforts they put into it. I also appreciate the fact that they spent some time talking about how they took what they knew about beforehand and they went ahead and just made adjustments by removing paint schemes and stuff like that. Took the same environment and by adjusting their colors and stuff like that, they could change the whole thing around dramatically. It was a big plus. They have a Lefsky look, and of course Lefsky is supposed to be brought back to us in Pyro. However, I'm not sure it's really going to happen. Lefsky is supposed to be back in next NYX, but nevertheless they may put it over there in Pyro for us in a little bit. There's supposed to be Pyro planets right now. Based upon the graphics I saw, they showed 5 Pyro planets. However, the lore in the ARC shows 6. I guess they decided to drop the 6th planet, and it's true or not. Did somebody say something different than that?
I didn't see anything different than that, but it should be 6. And
that's according to
showed
Star
5.
Map. There's some things in the Star Map that are way out of date. Like that 3rd planet is listed as a lava planet in the Star Map, and they've greatly changed that from what they showed.
Correct.
Yeah, that's true. The last time I saw the ARC updated was 2015, and so it's been many years since then. So,
well, they made some comment about the fact that that's flash based on the back end, and that is gone MIA, and they can't really update it. So they said they're going to be redoing that, and we should see some updates on the Star Map. I believe that's what they said, right, Soulhawk?
Yeah, they did say something about it being flash based on the back end.
Their new style buildings, I thought they're kind of like Star Wars or Mos Eisley vibe to them, to all of them. They emphasize CR's desire to put outposts in the hands of players, which is the big plus, in my opinion. Independent farmers or miners. Unique, maybe a use for all of that junk that we have. Homesteads, I thought that was a big positive. Gameplay-wise, outpost shops, no kiosks I noticed. With instead interface with NPCs, addition of artifacts as opposed to commodities came into play. AI operates off of a day system, a day pattern system, meaning if it's early in the morning, most likely to be asleep. Later on, they'll most likely be awake. When you decide we'll go ahead and raid one of these outposts, you want to take that into consideration as to when you're going to go and not go. Yeah, that's all right. I like that addition to the game itself. There's run and gun and stealth. What you put in there, Gnome. Can you explain a little bit further?
What do you mean? Oh, the run and gun. Well,
Run and
basically,
gun,
just talking about going in, just guns blazing, or doing what that guy did was go up to the shopkeeper and just start killing everybody, taking what he needs and go. And then they showed a stealth run where you could go through and slowly take people out without being seen and without alerting the whole base. I was like that you could get the same outcome as far as getting the item, but there's multiple paths to do it.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
Definitely.
Yep. Final thing, it's side note, truly a side note, but Theaters of War seems to be missing. We have not heard from that since 2018.
19.
18, I think it was, and nothing on that. Not sure I mind that or not. I really believe that devs should spend their time in the game itself or Squadron 42, but maybe not TOW. So be it.
So
No?
What was the question?
TOW.
Oh,
Theater
Theater of War. Yeah, heard nothing, absolutely nothing on that in the whole presentation, which honestly doesn't bother me. I never was invested in that.
We'll start with Theaters of War here as we kind of round robin this, and I'm excited because I thought Theaters of War was complete bullcrap and sucked, and they were wasting complete time on it. So the fact that they don't seem to be wasting time on it, to me, is a positive. I thought it was a complete waste of time and money and effort to spend 1 second on it. So if they've killed it off like they did Star Marine, which was also awful, I think that's a good thing. And Drosa, what are your thoughts on it?
I think it was pretty much them trying to upscale Star Marine. Like, I think that was like their next real big push, whether they've said it or not. I think that's what it is. Wherever it is, a lot of people, rushed Star Marine once it released, and then it fell off quite a while. And I think that Theaters of War was just their iteration of trying to bring it back. But for me, it's neither here nor there. If they implement it, cool, I'll check it out and try it. It's more along the lines of when Squadron 42 comes out, that's where I'll be. And of course, once the verse hits, that's where I'll be. So
yeah,
I think it's just to tide us over right now.
Well, my thought is they haven't said to hide nor hair about it in 2 years. Hopefully they've just given up on it. So, Soul, what are your thoughts?
I mean, Theater Wars would be interesting if they actually finished it. With that being said, as far as viability and it worth being invested in, there's not much incentive to work on it from a gameplay standpoint. Would it be fun? Sure. Is it useful? No.
Okay. And Josh, your thoughts on Theaters? No update on Theaters of War?
I'm going to have to be careful about any comments because, one, I do agree that I don't want to see side projects. I want to see the game. I will agree with that 100%. Being involved with Evocadian testing, there's some things that occurred that I can't talk about, but I'm glad they didn't highlight it. I do not care if it goes away. I do care more about things we're going to get into later, like server meshing.
Well, we'll get to that in just a second. What are your thoughts on the pyro planets that they showed us, Josh?
So I woke up this morning and I believe, was that where they showed the 3 different iterations where you could go through the same area with 3 different, like a faction member or non-faction member, right?
Yes.
Yes, that was pyro.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed that. And the concept that depending on where you are and where you stand with that faction in that area, that you could have different, interactions or different ways you conduct your business. So I really like that a lot. And that's more variation I want to see as gameplay comes out more.
Yeah, I agree completely. Joni's trying to pull up a picture of pyro here for us. Yeah. So this is one of the pyros.
Well, that's one biome.
One biome in one of the yes, I agree. There's a total of, and Joni keeps pulling up the wrong stuff. Go back to the other.
You're good.
Okay, fair enough. Well, she
I did
fixes
think it
that.
was hilarious that they barely talked about the 400i and they talked more about Pyro as it was flying around.
Well, they talked about the 400i at length in one of the other ones. That's where they made up for it.
Okay.
So, Soulhawk, what are your thoughts about what they showed us of the different pyro planets and all the different biomes on each of the planets?
I really like the look of Pyro and the art style. The planets themselves seem to be pretty interesting. I'm not sure how much more actually variety we're getting, because they seem to really emphasize, what was that, Pyro 3 with the moss and everything.
Yeah.
They spent a lot of time there, not a lot of time on the rest of stuff beyond some art direction. One thing that really did concern me when they're looking at the station and the habitation area, they mentioned how they didn't want it so crowded where the player and NPC kind of pathfinding got horrible looking. And as you're looking at the frame they're showing you, there's like enough room for one person to pass between stalls. So the fact that they were bringing it up and showing an example, showing like, hey, we didn't solve the problem, it exists right here and you can see it, was kind of concerning. It's like they weren't really paying attention to what they were showing.
Well, I agree completely. And Androsa, what did you think of the pyro stuff they showed us?
Oh no, that was Indrosa right there. I saw it on the screen, Jay. You can't fool me. He already said his bit.
No, Joni's got the stuff all messed up.
No, it's been a long day for Joni. We got to cut.
It has been a long day for our producer.
Doing a great job today. No, I really, really loved it. The aesthetics were clean. They were very nice. When we were down there chatting, a couple of us kind of broke off into small groups, and we were kind of chatting about, Pyro, and Jolly kind of hit the nail on the head with a lot of it looking like, Los Isles or Most Isles with the little smaller areas around. And it really all came together. I mean, you really could get a feel, and it really came alive. And that was one of the big things that I touched on this morning, was bringing that life, bringing that realism in. And they really did with, the phosphorescent, yellowish color around there from the volcanic, how they were kind of describing it and everything. But I loved it. I think they did a great job on it. I can't wait to see it.
Well, I agree completely. I think that they did a wonderful job. Nam, what are your thoughts on the pyro and all the stuff they showed us about pyro?
First off, I really liked how they showed there was different ways to go in there.
Well, no, I'm talking about the planets.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Oh, the plants themselves. First,
yes.
Yeah. Looks like that we know they've been working on those plants for a long time. Looked like they had that environment fairly fleshed out. So far we've only seen the 5 be mentioned, and we're going to have to go back through that video to see if I get what little more information they were showing on them. And they were going through each one, but didn't really have time to pause and read it.
Yeah, there was a lot of information in those slides.
They didn't talk, even though they talked about it generally, they didn't really show general positioning or anything to go on the how spread out the pyro system is and why we're going to need things about that one ship we're going to have to talk about later.
Yep. I completely agree. Jolly, your thoughts on the pyro landscapes of the different planets that they showed us?
They're beautiful. I like them. I really appreciate the fact that got 5 there that we know about. Like I said, there's supposed to be 6, but so be it. 5's good enough for me. Good variety of planets themselves. Some breathable air, some not. Some very extreme atmospheres. Some they're going more for the whatever you want. You get moss. You get lush green. You get snow. Whatever the case may be. So it's a good variety. Kind of like an Earth type planet. So that's a plus.
I agree completely. I really liked that portion of it, and I thought it looked great. Just to talk about the gameplay for a second. The gameplay is, I was really impressed with the gameplay walkthrough they put us through. The different ways of going in. I was sitting there thinking about how fun that's going to be for our org to drop in 40 or 50 guys to do an assault on a city or, small outpost this size.
Yep.
Yes. And I agree. It had a very Mos Eisley feel to it. But I don't know. Jolly, what do you think from looking at those gameplay scenarios they gave us that we as an org, some of the things that's going to allow us to do that we can't do today?
I would love it at the idea of taking down an outpost, the large organization, putting a lot of people in the game. Go down there, you attack, remove the missile launchers immediately.
Yes, definitely.
And get down there with overwhelmed with firepower, or take over the outpost itself. Take what's there. I'm interested to learn more about the artifacts. They didn't explain that too much as for what their value or worth is. Maybe I got a feeling you put three of those things together, they mean something. We'll wait and see. But just the joy of doing the attack itself would be worthwhile.
I got the impression that the artifacts were more just an in-game collectible that was worth a lot of value. I didn't get the impression that it had any game mechanics.
I don't know. Maybe it'll give you like a map to somewhere. You collect a couple. I'm with Jolly on this. When you put three of them together, it gives you coordinates to some lost treasure out in the middle of nowhere.
They did refer to it as a MacGuffin.
I think it's just going to be a hangar decoration.
Yep. As Joni continues to mislabel Andros trying to fix stuff.
Joe's just taking it over. I think I'm all over the screen now.
Yeah. Well, it says Soulhawk. Okay.
Now you're the imposter.
Josh, you were about to say, what did you think about doing assaults? Since that's kind of your bailiwick, figuring out how we're going to do stuff like that. What do you see those missions looking like?
Well, I've been doing a lot of DCS lately and a lot of complicated missions with lots of guys, and thinking about going in and having guys hit the turrets first, whether that's with aircraft or with guys on the ground, and getting kind of phase 1 and step 1 done, and then having your phase 2 come in with ground troops, or whether we're going to bring vehicles and the pre-planning and the execution that goes with that. That's where I really, really enjoy a game, is playing my role in some complex movement where we all have lots of pieces in motion and getting them to work together so that we can accomplish more than we can on our own, right? The benefit of being in an org is that you can do more than you could on your own. Herding those cats and getting in there and the unexpected things and the chaos, I love those things. So I'm really looking forward to it, and I wish it was out right now.
I agree completely. Soulhawk, you're our director of operations, and do mission planning for the org. Tracker asks a real interesting question here. And to quote him, it looked like the missiles didn't fire until a certain altitude, so low flying might work to get in close to take them out. If you can lock and get a pip, that is, or drop a bomb. What do you think about? Can you expound on his thoughts there, and what do you think about that?
It might have been altitude. It might also have been distance, because he was actively moving away from that outpost, and it's really hard to tell with just the one example. I do think that low-flying fast aircraft might be able to take it out. Ground assault is also very valid, as it's probably strictly anti-air missiles. It depends on what you have available as to which way you want to go, and it does depend if those missiles are altitude-based or just distance-based.
Well, and when you look at real-world radars today and anti-aircraft batteries, those missiles and radar types are designed for different distances, different elevations. Some are for really, really close. Some are to get you far away. Some come at you so fast they're going to be really hard to avoid. Some shoot so close and so quickly that a quick maneuver can get away. So I don't know if I'm going to hope that they're implementing something like that where you have different styles, but there could be reasons that we don't know yet.
I agree completely. I agree completely. So moving on, Nam, let's talk about ship talk now.
All right. Well, the big thing was I liked. First, I'll speak in the previous segment. They just said, "Okay, now I'm waking up my 400i." He just didn't even add any emphasis to it. just deadpanned it. I thought that was funny. They did that on purpose. But first off, I'm going to say I was wrong. I thought 404i, it was just a joke. It wasn't happening. And we were going to move on, and there was going to be some other surprise reveal or whatever. But apparently it's a thing. And good. Now people will enjoy it. I I don't know if I necessarily like the style of it myself, but as far as the details, not too bad. Some might think it's a little undergunned, but it's basically supposed to be a Connie competitor. It has and it's also it's in the PTU right now. PTU, if anybody doesn't know, just dropped to Wave 1. And so subscribers and concierge are able to play now, and some people apparently have it in game. It has 4 missile racks with 8 size 2 missiles each, so 32 missiles. 2 gimbaled size 3 Panthers, which can be swapped out for a fixed size 4s if you wanted to. Size 3 shield, size 2 quantum drive, 3 size 2 power plants. Don't know whether that was necessary or not, and three size 2 coolers.
Nothing. Sorry. Keep going.
Sorry. Thought I heard something. But it's $220 war bond. This is all U.S., of course, and $250 if you want to pay with store credit. And like I said, it is a competitor to the Constellation, roughly the same size, and has can carry a bike, which apparently is the X1. Does anybody know if it's supposed to be included with it, or do you have to get the X1 separate?
I don't believe so.
Yeah,
I didn't see it listed. Yeah,
I was able to jump in game really quick and take a look at this ship.
Mm-hmm.
And my initial impression is I think this is a very interesting fit for an Origin ship. A lot of Origin ships on the bigger size have a lot of, wasted space, and I have an 890, so I'm as guilty as it gets. But I really like that this was not quite as expensive as the Explorer variant of the Constellation. It probably doesn't have all the bigger features. The cargo deck up and down, or the lift, is smaller, and you're not going to get a very large vehicle in there. The X1 did not appear in the garage. I didn't have enough time to figure out how to get into the garage, but I could see into it. And I think that's a really interesting add-on, but it's not as useful as maybe a snub fighter. So I think, you're going to pay less money. You're going to get a little bit less. But I do think that this is a really interesting ship just beyond kind of a starter ship. If you want to do a little bit of all around and you want a little bit of luxury, I think this offers lots of various things that I think I like. I did see something I have not seen before, and it was 2 rooms near the cargo area that said temperature controlled. So I don't know if that meant temperature controlled for cargo or not, but there was nothing else in those rooms. And that could be an interesting game mechanic that we haven't seen in any other ship yet, that'll give you the ability to carry something that has temperature sensitive areas. So I thought aesthetically inside the ship was great. I think it's a nice little niche. I think it's probably valued right. And I don't think I'm going to pick it up, but I think there's a lot of people that are going to like this ship for the money.
Yep.
I would agree.
Soulhawk Frack asks, I liked every concept drawing they showed except for the one they actually went with. What are your thoughts while we show the different concept drawings on the screen? Did they make the right choice, or was there a better choice?
I feel like there were better choices in the concept art. I don't dislike the one they went with. It's one of those things when I first saw it, I'm like, oh, that's ugly. That was all ever. But as I kind of watched it, it kind of grew on me. The coloration they picked for it, I get they wanted to show off the skin that was kind of damaged, but it just looked terrible. And I think looking at that,
they were better
there's 2 or 3 in there that are just better than what we got. And I mean, it's their game. They get to pick the ship design. It's not what I would have went with, though.
Yeah,
I agree with you, Soulhawk. I do think they were trying to go with almost a traditional like yacht look, like today, with that big long bow and some of the ways the decks were laid out. So I mean, I get the concept, but I agree. I think some of the ones they showed as concepts were better than the actual.
Yeah. Hendrosa, what are your thoughts? Tiefel Hunden asks or states that they should have let us vote. What do you think about the current concept of the 400i?
When I first saw it, I got to, I'm majority rules on this one. Is my first impression was like, really? Was there not better choices? But it did grow on me, and I think it looks good. I'll have to disagree a little bit. I do like the skin color, that they have on the outside. That really kind of, I think, brought me into it. It's not the typical white on the outside, nice and shiny type ordeal, but you still get that that luxury feel with that yacht kind of look. But yeah, looking at them there.
I want to point out something. What you saw in game, I haven't seen for sale. The skin. It's white. It's white like every other basic origin ship in game stock right now. The skins I saw for sale don't include the skins that are for sale. Do not include what we saw in the demo.
Yeah, the base version is white. There's some skins that are predominantly black, but they have some colored accents near the back and kind of around the top of the cockpit that we didn't see with the one they demonstrated.
So we know they're going to sell us another skin at some point.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, I mean, with that being known right there, I think the way they showed it in game, it looks good. I don't know. I mean, you could probably get away with it, with the origin, the typical origin look with the white on there. It probably wouldn't look bad, but I guess I'd have to see it. I mean, but it grabbed my attention. At first, it didn't have my attention, but as you kept looking at it, as he was walking through it, I loved the way that you boarded and debarked the ship. It was great. It wasn't too bad.
Terrafon is indicating that he got when you buy it, you get the black skin. So
you do
by default, not the white skin. So, Jolly, what are your thoughts on?
I'm torn this one. Bear in mind, I bought a different ship today, so
which we're going to talk about shortly.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about. I have a Terrapin, and I never ever use it. I'll probably use the 400i more than I will the Terrapin. They're both Explorers. I just think the Terrapin may be something special in the future. I'm not sure. But if I'm not using it, then maybe I should get the 400i. So I don't know yet. I'll decide next couple days.
Jolly, before this happened, you're on the record as saying you just wanted to spend money and buy ships. So you don't need excuses.
Definitely. So, Nam, back to you. Let's talk about, do you have any final thoughts on the 400i before we move on to the Liberator?
Well, like I said before, aesthetically, it's not necessarily my thing. It doesn't seem to match up with the others. Of course, people make jokes about bedpans with referring to the other Origin ships, but and it is in line with like a yacht that somebody might buy at retirement. But I did for what it is. I think they designed it pretty well. The way the ramp you walk into, once it closes up, it serves as a hallway. It's not useless space like a lot of these things. So I think it's been pretty well designed.
I would say this. It is definitely one of the ugliest of the concepts, but I'm not a big Origin guy, so I don't like their ships to begin with.
Blasphemy.
Yes, I know. I'm awful, but I don't own any Origin ships because they look awful.
Heretic.
So, I'm sorry?
Heretic.
I know.
All hail the bedpan.
All hail the bedpan. Let's talk about the anvil then. Give us the specs on that and kind of what's going on there, and then we'll talk about it.
Well, that was a surprise. It was an actual. So the Anvil Liberator is classified as a light carrier. It's basically the pocket carrier people have asked for a long time. It's $500 war bond, meaning new cash. $575, and that since both this and the 400i are this the first time they're being sold, it comes with LTI insurance. If you pay with store credit, $575. It has pads for 3 small ships, small medium fighters. Probably a Warden is probably too big for those, and 2 tank-sized vehicles inside. But as we know from the Hercules, we'll see how many actually can fit, because people are going to try.
The brochure said you could have 2 small ships inside as well. One
small ship on the lower deck.
Think about the size of a Nova versus a typical small ship. Same as with the A2. I mean, the M2. I mean, how many actual ships can you fit inside of that? A crew of 2, which so we did the same thing when the Hurt came out. It's like only that many, that kind of thing. But it may be enough. I mean, one person's the pilot and the other one's the loadmaster. 16 jump seats for troops, whatever, and 14 suit lockers. And we got a picture of the interior here. Actually, Did we put up the picture of the Liberator itself first? I'm sorry.
We did. Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, so we got a picture of the interior. Let's see if I can enlarge this, get a better look. And it seems to me to be a pretty clean layout. And the important thing here versus a Herc is the cargo, which is 400 SCU of cargo, is separate from the vehicle base. So you're not stuck in a situation of either or. You can both have the vehicles for your operation and the supplies to support it. And then of course on the port side there's a docking collar. And
what is that bottom front room there? I can't quite make it out. Is that cargo? Both those front rooms are cargo.
The bottom left.
Yes, the very bottom.
left.
Yeah, those are all the 400 SCU of cargo there.
Okay.
And then on the port side seems to be a whole lot of armory, jump room, all the quarters and all that.
Great.
But overall, this is pretty awesome. This is pretty much if someone was planning on using a Hercules for supporting operations, dropping in on a location, this is a much better choice. I don't really
It's a must buy.
Yeah.
A must buy. Right now, Anvil.
Go Jolly.
For God's sakes, googly boogly. For a low price, you get 3 fighters, 2 tanks on 1 ship. Only needs 2 people. Good God, people, buy this ship now.
I'm going to be honest. This is, a pocket carrier, for lack of a better term. It's a major pocket fob, as Tiefel London calls it. I think this is going to be a game changer when it gets in game, and that's when is the key phrase. Soul, dropping down to you, what are your thoughts on the Anvil Liberator now that we've gotten Jolly's bye speech?
I'm not going to go so far as to say you must buy it now, but it is a fantastic ship. It solves a lot of the logistic problems that you're going to run into if you're doing smaller groups. It's basically like, if you can't afford a Kraken but want one, get this instead. Because this is everything the Kraken does, just on a smaller scale and a little bit less able in some areas. And that's fine.
I would make the argument, the downside to the Kraken is you can't land it. And this
you can land it.
Oh,
yeah.
you can't?
You can. They have a concept art of it landed.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. But
it's just going to cost you more
on and
hydrogen
off of
than
it.
you can afford.
Yeah, but getting on and off of it does not look like it's as roll-on easy as this.
No, this is 100% easier than getting off the Kraken when it's landed.
Correct. This is a huge benefit.
Yeah, I love this ship.
Handrosa, what are your thoughts on the pocket carrier Liberator?
I loved it. Corey, I'm with Jolly on this one. Anything Anvil, I mean, it took me right back to the, oh God, now I'm going to forget which one it was. Which one do we like there, Jolly? What am I thinking of? The Valkyrie. The Valkyrie. It took me right back to the Valkyrie, and I was like, I'm sold. But, yeah, we were kind of chatting it up. We're like, oh, man, wait until people put some tanks on this things and you start flying it around. And, of course, those folks are already looking to do that. But, yeah, it's definitely a must-have for any organization. Right, Jolly? At least 4 or 5 for ADI.
I agree.
Yeah, the key thing I see here about this and how it's going to impact operations for us in Atlas Defense Industries is this fits right above the Valkyrie. The Valkyrie is a great ship. It gets infantry in. It can get a couple of light vehicles in, but you can't carry air cover. You can't carry non-quantuming, runabouts and things like that, like Argo, MPVUs or MPUVs, whatever.
Yeah, this will be the heavy lifter.
This is the one step above, and and you can fly fighters from it. It sounds like in theory they're going to give us the refuel mechanism, and I see this as being a real big go-to as soon as it's in game. Josh, what are your thoughts?
So I'm going to agree with Jolly's excitement and enthusiasm, and I really love this ship, and I could spend an hour talking to you about how much time I've spent trying to make an 890 or a Polaris fit into this multi-role that this ship does at a much better level. Now, I do think the 890 still has some roles in that, and we'll see about the Polaris, but this ship knocks it out of the park. I do think it changes a couple things I want to talk about, and then I want to talk about a couple of questions I have that maybe aren't so great. But number one, I think that it's very important to look at some of the details. And when you look at the size of the ship pads, a Super Hornet's about 26.5 meters wide. Okay. So if that's our baseline, then we can start talking about what other ships can we fit on there. Now, a Cutlass is about 1.5 meters, 2 meters wider than the Super Hornet. So I don't know if that means we'd be able to get a Cutlass onto there for those 2 small pads and make it 1 medium ship. So it'd be very interesting. But I do think that if that's not the case, the Freelancer suddenly becomes a very interesting ship. It is within the width of a Super Hornet and the length of those 2 pads, it should fit no problem. So if you wanted something medium sized to fit on there to do another multi-role job and not have to take that all the way down planet side, now the Freelancer becomes a very, very interesting ship in my mind. Now, to take that to another extreme, you could probably fit 2 or 3 arrows for every one of those pads and potentially have 9 arrows to take with you. So this is a game changer.
That's very real.
I think you're stretching.
Well, you can definitely do 2. I can get 3 arrows onto an 890 pad. All right. So we'll see, but you could definitely do 2. Right.
Yes.
They were pretty clear about it's supposed to be 3 extra small ships. I'm thinking bucks, arrows, stuff like that. Be able to fit those 3 plus 2 tanks. You want 2 tanks, whatever. But I really don't think they're going above the more than maybe a Gladius. 3 Gladius would be outstanding. I think that's about it.
Yep.
Yeah, sure. But it's, again, this is going to give you the flexibility to take the entourage that you want for that mission. So if we were going to go take out one of those systems down that we saw in Pyro, we're going to attack one of those. This could be one of the main launch pads that we need. Now, it does get into a couple of questions. This has, it looks like it's a long duration ship. So I didn't see anything that said anything about medical. Maybe I missed it. Again, I was doing other things, so I'd like to see if there was some basic level of medical on there. And then 2, it has 16 jump seats and 14 lockers, but I didn't say anything about beds for people to log out of. So that's one question I really have, and I really hope that they have the facilities for 16 people, if it's just real crude bunks or something.
I think if they're treating it the same way they did the Valkyrie, it's meant for moving troops in. It's not meant for them to stay on.
Okay.
We will never have the one and all ship out there. You can't have everything you want in one ship. And
Why
I
not?
agree with that concept. Because you should not. Period.
But you were so excited about this ship.
Hold on.
How could you not want beds?
Hold on. We do have
a transport, a fighter, a bombardier, whatever the case would be. So they should be different. I love the fact you have to bring in all sorts of ships in to make something happen. Right. Not all in one. I love the fact that taking 2 of these things there, as you described, with their fighters, with their troops, plus you need to have some sort of bomber in there, maybe. You need to have some sort of support ship, medical ships. I completely agree with you, but you cannot have one ship that does everything. That's being spoiled brat.
And he's pointing at you, Josh.
I thought you had it.
Right there.
I'm going to say you did not. There's one last thing I want to talk about on this really quick.
Okay.
So I love it, and I like Anvil, and I got to decide if I'm going to upgrade my Valkyrie or just buy this. There's a lot of questions I got to answer, okay? But I am curious, and I would love to see, and I know Jay's not going to like this, an Origin variant of a pocket carrier and a Crusader variant of a pocket carrier. I'd love to see those 2.
Yes.
Look, I'm all for more variants of pocket carriers. I would think Origin would be the worst possible vendor to make it, but that's my opinion. My opinion only. Everybody's got different flavors for stuff. And so, yeah, I think, a Crusader or Origin or Aegis or something like that, pocket carrier or anything else would be interesting to see. But it's good that we finally have one that's coming into game. And I think that this particular vehicle is going to be useful for more than just military. I think that this is the perfect go to Pyro and do a bunch of mining, surface mining ship. because you could carry probably 4 or 6 Argo rocks. You can carry an Argo MP, whatever, the person carrier version that can carry around hand miners. And you can have plenty of cargo to offload the rocks and the hand miner stuff into little cargo boxes in the cargo hold. So, I mean,
a prospector would fit.
Well, and maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I'd prefer to have fighter coverage or something like that instead, but for the other 2 slots. But my point is that this ship could have some significant flexibilities. And definitely, I agree. Tiefel says he sees the Kraken being more of a medium-sized ship. I agree completely with that.
Yes.
The Kraken is in a different scale. And I'm going to be honest, as big as the Kraken and as big as an Idris is and how long it takes to get a hammerhead out to orbit, I'm not going to take them into a gravity well unless we have no choice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Anybody
else have any further comments on the Liberator before we move on?
Liberator is the small one. Kraken is the medium one. I wait to see the big one besides the one we can't get whatsoever.
Correct. There needs to be a 6 to 9 fighter pocket carrier.
As for the win,
or whatever you want to call that.
And I hope they make it Origin just so you hate it.
I know, but that's okay. But here's the thing. I will suck it up, Buttercup, and be happy about it, because that's the one thing that we don't have is the ability to launch light fighters and refuel and rearm them.
This is
And
true.
we need a carrier for that.
Excuse me. Bless me.
So any other comments on the Liberator before we move on to...
on the when question.
Okay.
We love asking that. But I'd say this or something like it's going to be an essential thing to have in the game before they drop Pyro. So I'm hoping it drops before then.
They did specifically mention in a one-off comment that this would be useful for getting your fighters around Pyro, just because the size of that system is going to be much larger than Crusader, and there's not going to be a lot of gas stations.
Correct. So, let's go on and talk about the Banu Merchantman.
I think that's on me. Well, they showed another update on the Banu, and first thing that stood out was size 8 guns. Now, the thing keeps growing. I mean, before this thing drops into game, it's going to fit the Stanton system in the cargo hold, and every time it activates the jump drive, it's going to create another wormhole. Don't know. They keep growing this thing every time. So, we'll see how long it is before we. Are they even like in a white box on that yet? Anybody know?
No, I didn't hear about that today.
I didn't either.
No. So, that's a main thing I know is it looked a little bit less spiky than it has in the past, and only other real detail was 4 automated point defense turrets. Other than that, they showed pictures of some components moving, articulating. But I didn't get a whole lot of detail on it beyond that. Anybody catch anything more than I did?
Yeah, it was a lot bigger, better ship than I thought it would be. I have it BMM. I paid $350 for it. We have a couple members who paid $250 for it when it first came out, before I ever got a chance to buy it. Bear in mind, mine was an upgrade for it. And I'm thinking now that we're talking about capital ships going to be worth about $800-900 in the next iteration of this. Right now, you cannot get one unless you buy a package. And that's a $3,500 package, I believe it is. And I think you're better off. You bought one way back. You got a gold gem right there. It's going to be a massive improvement to your gameplay. I have to wait and see how the NPC interaction with buying stuff off of your ship is going to come to play. But I'm real happy with the fact that I have one of those darn things.
Completely agree. The Banu Midshipman is a big change. Not a big fan of the Banu stuff personally, but I see a lot of love there, and I like that game. And that's going to be a big ship with that size 8 weapon. So Hawk, what are your thoughts on the Banu, real quick?
It's definitely got bigger. That was the first thing that jumped out at me. They did kind of sleek it down a bit. It looks less spiky and more curve, as I think Nam already brought up. I'm not a big fan of the alien aesthetic. With that being said, it does look like an interesting ship. I can see it being a useful ship. I personally won't be getting one, not only because it's probably going to price jump up again to like $750 at least.
Yeah.
But
800, 900.
I think the people who bought it are going to be real happy with it.
Mm-hmm. Especially if you bought it early, like Jolly did.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
And I didn't buy it early enough. Damn it.
Yep. Josh, any comments on the Banu?
I really liked the concept of the Banu from the beginning. I did not buy one, but I've thought it's been an interesting ship. The way it's developed, I think, dollar for dollar at that original 250 price is probably the best thing you could buy to get your money on your return. I will look to see how it is in game, and I'm looking forward to seeing the trading and things that are done on it. So I think it's just a really interesting, useful ship that's kind of grown in one of the more interesting ways than some of the others over time.
And not last, but very much not least, Tendrosa, thoughts on the Banu?
Yeah, I'm pretty much of the same opinion of the group. I don't personally own one. It's going to bring a lot, to the verse, not to beat a dead horse or anything like that. I did really like the fact that you had the Banu Defender that fit inside that thing. That was pretty cool, and I loved the fact that the guns were hidden. I didn't catch too much on that one, but I was like, I like that. You got yourself your flying shopping mall, but the thing can be deadly, I guess, if need be.
Concealed carry.
Concealed carry does require us that the Banu Merchantman has a hangar space for 2 defenders, which is that's pretty
nice.
Stout fighters. So that means there's going to be plenty of room for other fighters. May even fit a Vanguard. We'll have to check and see. It'd be close.
Yeah.
That Banu Defender is a stout little puppy as far as a landing footprint.
And with how generous they are on landing pads, yeah, I could see it fitting a Vanguard.
Good. We'll have to wait and see. But and then finally, Nom, we have one last ship that they announced here. Do you want to we don't have much information on it, but
just they showed a blurry image that you couldn't make out anything in, of course. But the small refinery ship. You remember, was it last year they had the competition for concepts, and there were 4 of them, and this is the last of the 4 that we haven't seen. The ground mining vehicle ended up being the Rock DS, and then the Xi'an small cargo, which was the Gatac, and the Tavaran light fighter, which we've of course gotten now. So it's the refiner, some sort of small refining ship for refining ore for obviously, like maybe you have a couple of prospectors out collecting ore, and they'll take it back to it rather than having to haul all the way back to a station, which could be very
massive.
Which would be very lucrative if you're in a very rich quantanium field. You don't have to worry about the expiration date on those. You can just take it to that. It can refine them and put it in a stable state. That would be awesome. And the only other thing is they started. We didn't mention it, did we? But as far as the competition, I don't see it listed here. They had a new contest for 4 new concepts to vote between, just like we did before.
Yep,
Yeah,
they haven't
put it
announced how we're going to do that yet.
No,
they have a
poll
poll
right now.
They have a poll on the website,
Yep.
and the Explorer is already taking it. It's obvious the Explorer ship's going to win. So we're going to be getting some new undefined Explorer ship. The other 3 was a ground vehicle, a hover vehicle, and a bomber.
Bomber.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. We need a dedicated little bomber.
I would say the
completely
bomber or the hover vehicle. Only reason I would want that one is to force them to finally fix hover mode. Fix that's the wrong words to use, but the Gravlev vehicles.
Yeah.
But yeah, we definitely need a nice small dedicated bomber.
Yep.
With a targeting pod.
Yeah, the current World War II guess your windage and release method is not the best.
No.
I guess with that said, that kind of completes the first part of our show here. We're going to be here for a long time tonight because there's lots of information. We're going to go to a commercial break shortly, but when we come back, we're going to be talking about the Gen 12 and multi-core Vulcan segments, crafting of worlds, and finally, but not least, server meshing in the state of persistence and some of the little nuance bombs that they dropped in that I think are going to impact people. Excuse me. So we're going to go to a commercial break, and we'll be back in about 3 minutes.
The Verse is a place full of pirates, outlaws, and danger. And all of us get stuck in bad situations sometimes. Here at ADI, we have each other's backs, so you're never alone when things go from bad to worse. Join now and stand with us.
With courage, for honor, in strength, to glory.
Looks like they got most all of it.
Hey, welcome back, guys. How we doing? Hopefully you enjoyed those commercials as much as we enjoyed the break. And we're on to a segment that I'll be running, and people are going to send me hate mail, I'm sure, over this, and that is Gen 12 and the multi-core of Vulcan. I watched this with a lot of careful deliberation, and here are some highlights that I picked out that probably most people and most reviewers didn't, and that is the big thing. Ultimately, even after they do all of this, the game will be single-threaded limited still. It'll be better than it is today, but single core speed will be of the CPU is going to be the determining factor of how fast you can, or how many frames per second you can get, and is going to be determining how well the gameplay is going to be for you. And while they're doing a lot to make it better, and I encourage them to do that, they left little nuggets in there where it is definitely going to be single thread limited, just as it is today. Better, but still limited. And that probably means for the foreseeable future that Intel CPUs are the best Star Citizen gaming computer CPUs, even after they get done with Gen 12 and Vulcan. So Vulcan is really going to speed up our GPU performance, and it's going to simplify code, which is going to increase the FPSs, and that's great. And they're going to be using a piecemeal approach. The initial phase that they're working on is Gen 12 with DirectX 11, then moving on to Gen 12 with Vulkan, and finally the last one is Gen 12 with Vulkan and multi-threaded code. So the multi-threaded code will be the last thing that they're doing. And finally, they're going to try to put ray tracing in. So I know that this is going to be controversial, so we're going to round robin it a little bit, but this doesn't change the dynamics of how to build a good Star Citizen gaming PC as much as I think a lot of people had hoped for. Jolly, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, real quick, I have to ask Jay, bear in mind, my knowledge about computers is I buy what's the most expensive thing I can find. Must be better. And that's the same with my golf game. Buy the most expensive clubs. That should help my game. So the same approach to the computer gaming. Now, Jay, I have to ask, once we get to Gen 12 Vulkan multi-threaded code, is your view of the Intel being the best as opposed to Ryzen, which choice should I make at that point in time?
So as we understand it now, and as of the Intel roadmap that we have for the next couple of years in the AMD roadmap, and again, when we get to that point, we'll need to make a decision. But as of right now, it looks like Intel is going to be the chip to go with for if you're building a gaming computer for Star Citizen.
Right now, I agree. And bear in mind, I'm a pure Intel guy so far.
Yep.
So I just want to know, towards the end game, 2, 3, 12 years from now, maybe I should change the computer over to some different system. But
it could happen. But the key phrase is whichever one can do the most number of cycles per second on a single core is the winner. And right now, dollar for dollar, Intel has a 15 to 20% lead on AMD, and that appears to either get bigger or stay the same over the course of the next 4 to 5 years.
All right.
Now, AMD could shock us all of a sudden, but for the foreseeable future, that's what it appears to be the case. So, and I know that's going to, and look, I own AMD computers, okay? I'm not saying AMDs are bad computers. I'm just saying if I had $1,250 or $1,500 to buy a gaming computer, you need to buy an Intel CPU for Star Citizen. And the truth is that in most older games and other stuff, you're not going to notice the difference unless you're trying to push 144 hertz monitors or something like that. Nam, do you have any questions or comments on any of this?
I would agree with you. This is all assuming with the caveat the systems are probably configured for their peculiarities. With the you're talking about, like with the Intel, it's making sure you're using the right memory with it and that it's configured correctly to use its XMP setting and everything else. I mean, but for you and me, we're talking, in some cases, we're talking like what, a 10% gain?
Well, but a 10% gain on
it can make a big difference. Yes.
I mean, you're talking about, a 10% gain can be 6 to 10 frames per second difference.
Which can be a lot if you're in the area of like Orison, where you're scraping to get 5 frames here and there by turning down settings because of the cloud tech.
Correct. And Vulkan will help with some of that. You're going to see frame increases no matter what your computer is. I'm just saying that if I were, for the foreseeable future, if I needed to get a new gaming computer in the next 3 years, because we have a pretty good idea what the roadmap of CPUs look like in the next 3 years, that even if they completed all of these Gen 12 plus Vulkan plus multi-threaded code enhancements, that Intel is going to be the right computer chip to buy for your computer. If you're concerned about Star Citizen.
Well, it's like you're talking about in the vacuum of being a dedicated game system dedicated to Star Citizen and games that behave in a similar fashion.
Yes.
Whereas if you're doing other things, or if you're doing what you and I are doing a lot right now, we're running a lot of background tasks.
My day-to-day work computer is an AMD 5900. So I'm not saying they're bad systems, but I can put a 5900 down against a 1080 850, and the 10850 is getting 10, 11, 12% better frames per second on the exact same model graphics card.
And it's a 10 core 20 thread CPU.
Yeah. So I mean, it's it's definitely an issue there that we want to be honest with people, and that's the honest assessment there. What do you think, Hendros? Any questions, comments on Gen 12 and the multi-core of Vulkan?
No, not really. I mean, it's going to be. I mean, I can't wait to see it. I'm kind of in the same realm with Jolly, but when it comes to AMD and Intel, I let the performance speak for itself. For gameplay, Intel. For running hardware and programs, things like that.
AMD.
Absolutely AMD. I'm the same way with you, Jay. I run AMD and I run Intel. So.
Yep. It's not because we don't like buying from them or something silly. Josh, I know you know very little about computers, but I'll ask, do you have any questions? And let's see if any of our viewers have any questions for us.
I think the biggest question I have, and I'm going to assume this is just because I don't know the inside details, is what is the challenge to making multi-core work with a game? I mean, I have a multi-core processor. I get the concept that it's going to start dividing up the workload amongst those processors. What makes that so complicated?
The queuing system, the single-threaded queuing system that is designed in Lumberyard and the Crytek engine, it's just a core technology issue. It's not written from the ground up, and neither are any of the other gaming engines really, except maybe Unreal is getting close. It's just not written to actually be pure multi-threaded, and therefore all that information has to come back to a single thread to be executed, and that's a limiter. And we've seen this, you and I have seen this with Arma, and we have seen this with other, Red Dead Redemption 2 has the same problem. And it's just these very complicated simulation games. It's a limiting factor, and it's awful. I get a lot of guys, well, my Counter-Strike will play at 200 frames per second. Why can't Star Citizen? And it's just a different game engine, and there's just too much data and waiting on other things to be able to execute. Now, the things they're going to do are going to increase frame rates. Okay, I want to be very clear on that, on AMD's and on Intel's. They're just, at the end of the day, Intel is still going to win out dollar for dollar over the next 3 or 4 years, and probably longer than that, but we'll have to wait and see. And then, Soul, any thoughts?
I mean, you already said most of it. Intel's going to be winning out for the next several years. I will say, as someone who just built a new gaming PC, I'm happy I put Intel in there. It looks to be kind of the choice for going forward.
I agree. And I know that there'll be some ragers. Kind of surprised nobody said anything in chat, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I one more thing real quick, Jay.
Okay.
When I first looked into SC back in 2015, 2014, something like that, when I looked for the minimum, what do you need to run the game? It said 1 gig of RAM. 1 gig.
A video RAM, a GPU RAM.
And a Core 2 Duo.
Yes. It was, look.
Googly moogly has things changed.
It's going to require a hoss of a computer that most
32.
of us don't even know.
Guys, you need 32. I don't like that fact, but that's what you need.
Yeah. If you're going to have anything open other than Windows in the game, you need 32 gigs of memory today.
Absolutely.
That's a good point, Jay. If you close everything down, don't worry about chat, Discord, whatever.
Even that.
Close them all down.
Yep.
You're okay with 8.
Well, no, 16. Can't even open it with 8 today.
Okay, 16. You're right. 16.
Yeah.
3.
Yep. Can't get it in 8. The operating system is taking up too much. So, okay. Moving on. Soul, talk to us about Crafting World's planetary tools and tech.
So we saw a lot of really interesting stuff when they were showing off Pyro. We already talked about how some of the planets look, and they did a little bit deeper dive into how they've set up some of the stuff. One of the kind of highlights for me was they set up a new shader system, essentially, where if they pop down something like an animal or a plant, it's going to look at the environment it's in and what season it is, and it's going to look different depending on those. They talked about doing that. The example they used was rabbits. They put them in the Arctic. Looks like a snowy hare. pop it in the jungle looks completely different. And that is really big as far as simplifying their workload, because then it turns into, we create this, we can drop it wherever we want, and the shaders will do the work for us. That's a huge time saver on development. Androsa, you have any thoughts on that?
No, I'm on that aspect. I really don't. I mean I really don't. Not with that aspect there. I want to say I kind of missed a little bit of that segment on there when they were kind of getting into a lot of the more in-depth stuff. It was kind of like tune out time, no more visuals, it's all gone.
They did put it right up after Vulcan, which really just
Yeah,
a lot of
it
people
dropped.
kind of couldn't keep up, and then they're like, hey, here's this interesting thing, but they had already lost a whole bunch of
Yeah,
people.
they did. We were literally talking about it. I know Dixon, Terrafonda, we were like, man, just look at this drop off. I mean, it's definitely interesting stuff out there. What they're doing with it, it's just, it's kind of like what Jolly was saying. It's like, nope, let me see it. I want to see how it works. Don't explain it to me. Let me see it. And I'm of the same opinion.
One of the things they brought up that kind of surprised me is previously when they had been doing Bodies of Water, it was all one map. So that you had an ocean level and you just changed that volume and it determined where your oceans were. They've changed that now to where they're adding a river map, which allows them better control over the rivers. They can kind of define it. They even mentioned something about being able to hit a button and generate rivers over an entire planet, which is of dubious use as a final processing method. But definitely a lot of interesting stuff in that, streamlining development, things like that. The big kind of takeaway was, I think it was Rostar or Roster or whatever they called it. It's their outpost building tech. It's modular outpost as opposed to the prefabs we have before. And they did mention that this is what we're going to be using to build our own outposts. So that's going to tie into the Pioneers, things like that. Not sure how the interface is going to work on that, but from what we saw, it seemed to be pretty user-friendly. We'll have to see how they implement that into the game. But Jolly, do you have any thoughts on player outposts?
Yeah, real quick. What they're trying to do is the right thing. I appreciate that fact. I also appreciate the fact they've got some new designs in there, something that's we can play with. I think I made the comment somewhere that it's a Star Wars type looking thing there, and I like it. But what they're trying to do is be able to immediately keep in mind, take a look at the ArcMap at some point in time. There's trillions of trillions. There's a few hundred systems out there they're going to be able to populate. And the only way we can do that is through how they're trying to do right now. And I really hope that comes to be in fruition. There'll be bugs to those systems, but so be it. And I'll live with that.
Personally, I hope that this leads into more variation, not just in the things we see on a planet in terms of HABs, because it does get kind of routine when you're like, oh, it's the same building in a different location. But also maybe when we're going into some of the other systems, the different rest stops, the different ways you get in and out of customs, I'd like to see a little more flexibility. I mean, I get it. I'm not complaining about where it is now. There's other areas of the game I'd prefer them to work on. But for the future, I think this is going to be very important so things don't feel stale.
Yeah, they did draw the modular bit of this, and they said they were going to apply the same stuff to like caves, derelicts on the surface. So there's a lot more modularity coming in the surface stuff from what they were saying, as opposed to kind of the cookie cutter, here's a prefab, here's a landing pad, let's go. So that should be really interesting, and it should give us the variety we need to see in, the 70 some odd planets that we're going to end up with.
Okay. I agree completely. The new modular stuff looked amazing. It's a lot better than the crud on stilts that we have today. And, I just cannot wait until they give us Pioneers and let us print our own setups. I love this new, being able to kind of cookie cutter in the parts that you want to get the design you're looking for, and you get to control it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
I would hope that they're designing these tools, the roster tool, as you referred to, with an eye towards it's actually part of the interface we would have on board a Pioneer. So it was the tools they use is kind of the tool we would use to do the same thing.
I agree completely.
It's like on a table, like a hollow table or
Yeah,
something.
we'll have to see how they tie that in.
So Tiefel makes the comment, the engineers didn't seem excited with the technology. You know, not everybody's comfortable on camera. It took us a long time, and we're still not completely there. So, you know, I would just chalk that up to the employees working on it aren't used to being in front of a camera, having to do an interview, and that can definitely be kind of annoying.
I mean, the one nice thing that comes out of this, if you can stand all the techie stuff, is Star Citizen is making a lot of technical changes that need to be done to make something like this exist at this scale. So it is interesting when you get through it all to see that and understand where it's going, and it begins to answer the question a little bit of, gee, why is this taking so long to develop? So I like seeing it, but it is hard to sit through. It reminds me of being in a classroom.
Oh, it's definitely womp, 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 womp on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Any other comments on the crafting and planetary tools before we move on?
I missed the thing about you can print your own, like, so the Pioneer gives you the ability to like 3D print and design your own structures.
Yes.
Well, they talked about using the like modular components they had, and it's snapping together into buildings, and that's using the Rostar tool they had. So they're going to link those two. We just don't know how.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
real
Keep in mind.
Go ahead. No,
Go ahead, Dylan.
Just keep in mind when they concepted the Pioneer, they're creating this tool, and then they're going to go back to, and how do we make the Pioneer work with this is what they're going to do. This was not a concept when they came out with the Pioneer.
No,
but I think
was
it's
the
great.
Module on stilts buildings when they came out with Pioneer.
Right.
Real quick, my last comment is procedural generation. The only way we get Star System to be the Star System we think it's going to be. When I look at the art map and all those damn planets out there, there's no way these devs can possibly populate each planet on its own. They've got to come up with some way to just say magic happens and they're there, and I
agree
think that will
completely.
happen.
Like the river tool he talked about, where suddenly all the rivers are on the planet, and then the artist goes in through after the fact and fixes the 10, 20, 30% of it that's screwed up.
And I'm okay with the 10, 20, 30% of it that's screwed up to play the game.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Tiefel, I think that they showed us a demo of this. They had, that Mos Eisley attack with the 400i was in one of these procedurally generated towns.
Yeah, that wasn't
And they
an
told us
actual
it
outpost built using this tool.
Yep.
Mhm.
So, and it was automatically generated. So I think
They even had an Inside Star Citizen a long while back when they were actually going through and using the new tech like the first time they introduced it.
Well, I agree. So let's move on to server meshing, which is another one that I get to talk about. Let me jot down the time here real quick for notes. Okay, moving on. So the big thing here is they really gave us a very good look at exactly how they're designing server meshing. There were a couple surprises in there, and some of them good and some of them bad. But basically, right now, today, we have a server, and the server does everything. Then they're going to be moving to shards, and the shards will be a group of servers that are acting in concert to provide one picture of the universe. But there will be multiple of them from the way they're describing it. The graph database that they're using is going to be much faster than any traditional database. And it's storing it basically in the raw code methodology, which was XML or JSON, depending on, I didn't get a good look at that screen, but it will allow the servers to just feed in instead of having to do a traditional database query and running through code that has to do variables. It just downloads the config files and goes. Mesh rollout, the first thing will be to have fixed game servers for each area per shard, and then eventually rolling into a dynamic system where that is split up and more game servers are turned on. Here are the big things that I caught in the devil in the details there. One, that not everything is going to be on a single shard. So, and that two, you're not going to have the ability to control which shard you get connected to. And that is a big red flag. In a traditional game, let's use New World, which is also run on Lumberyard and just got released. They're using a similar technology to this. There's multiple servers, and you're able to entity between those servers using a system very much like this. But I get to pick the shard that I'm going to go on. And the shard may only be able to support 3,000 or 3,500 people, but I have control over, this is the shard that me and my buddies are going to play on. The downside I see to this is they're going to build shards, and they're going to dynamically assign it to you, and you're not going to be able to control that. So a couple of things. One, I don't think that 3,000 people, 4,000 people in a single shard is going to be enough if they get to 25 systems, let alone 100 systems. That throws up a big red flag for me. And two, because the player density is just going to be really low. And two, I'm not going to be able to guarantee that I'm going to be able to get with all my friends. If if we're spread out and we're coming together, we may not know that we're not on the same shard for hours, depending on how they set up the communication. So those are the big issues that I saw with that system. Jolly, do you have any questions or thoughts about that?
No, I do not.
Does it concern you at all?
To be honest, Jay, no.
No? Okay.
The concept that they presented right now tonight, or earlier tonight, it made sense to me, and I'm willing to give it a shot and see what's going to come of it. But, it is what it is. Anything more than 50 people, the ability to be able to go from one player if you join later than I do, or you try to join up with me, and if I can do that, I'm in favor of. So give them a shot. Let's see how it works out. It does it. If it does, it does.
I think the issue is that the way they describe the algorithm, and again, the devil's going to be in the details, is if I'm 3-star systems over and I spawn in, it may pick a completely different shard, and I won't be able to interact with you when I fly over to you.
Okay, I heard that differently. I thought you could come over to me.
No, they explicitly said it would internally figure out what shard would be best to put you on, but you would be on a separate universe from anyone on another shard.
How is that any different than we currently have?
Well, it's not any different from what we currently have, but that isn't an interim step. That is their final solution that they're describing.
They're going to have a better, like you said before, there's going to have to be a more definitive way of being able to group with your friends.
Yeah, like a jump to players shard button or something like that.
Well, just like right now where we party up and then we join, it puts us all on the same server.
Well,
you're going to have some definitive way to say, I want to be with my friends. I don't necessarily trust a system where it's supposed to magically know that, oh, that's your friend over there and you two are now on the same shard. I don't know that they can make something that sophisticated the time.
Captain Knuckles is asking the question. I thought that the shard, sorry, Joni's changing screens on me there. The shard was saying a system, and then when you entered, every server joins that shard. No, that isn't what they said, Knuckles. They said that a group of servers form a shard and that there would be multiple shards, and that shards were separate multiverses from each other, that they were self-contained universes that you could go to any star system inside that shard, but the next shard sitting next to you in the bubble would be in a completely different universe, i.e. what happened there would not impact you in shard A, what happened in shard B. That we're very explicit about explaining that. Again, this is a presentation where they're trying to talk up tech. They were not highlighting the problems with that tech very well, but they didn't hide it. They were very explicit about how it worked. So
maybe they were mistaken.
I doubt the guys writing it were mistaken. They very much understood the technology underneath it.
The way they were talking, they very much have something working in the background. They're not at the theoretical point now. They've definitely written something.
So Knuckles also, hold on a second, Ice Green Hemp. It will ultimately depend on how many people can sit on the server. I agree. That'll be a question. How many people can sit on the server? My guess is that they might be able to get that to 200 or 300, maybe 500, but it's not per server. And then a shard will be multiple servers, and they may, now one thing they may do that New World did not do is they may make that dynamic because their system appears to allow for that. So you might be able to get to 10,000 person servers, but you're not going to be able to get to 30,000 person servers.
But we're still back to the problem. If it's dynamic, is how do you ensure you're with the people you want to be with?
Well,
and is it going to deprioritize?
Proximity.
Is it going to deprioritize your friend because he's in Europe?
Well, that's a good question, but it looks like the servers are based off of where you're at geographically, and as you move into that entity, you could start to see stuff and interact with it. So I think if you get on the same shard, a lot of the issues that we're worried about, obviously scale and getting the kinks worked out, are critical, but I think it will be better. The big issue is these multiple shards. Yeah, Josh.
So let me ask the practical question. I have my brand new Liberator packed full of all the tools I need to go take out an outpost. Sure. And I have my friends with me. But I am a crappy leader and everything goes to heck. And I got to pull the big red emergency handle and say, hey, all of my 7,000 members of ADI, please come help me. What happens then? Am I going to be able to get the help that I need?
Only the ones on the same shard as you will be able to help you. That's how they described it. They were very specific, Ellie. They're very detailed about how this system was going to work. There were lots of nice little colored graphs. I'm telling you, that's what they've said.
Josh, that's disappointing. What was that? What was that,
I'll
Jolly?
be there, Josh. I'll be there.
and the bigger issue, the bigger issue here is, unlike a traditional system where you get to pick the shard that you go on, i.e. New World, i.e. WoW, i.e. any of that stuff, they have said, and maybe they will change their minds, but what they presented today was it would decide based off of a number of factors what shard to place you on.
Well, and Waterdrop says that he thinks that the different shards are just going to cover different regions of space.
That is not what they said. They said different servers in a shard would cover different regions of space. But they were very explicit that different shards were completely separate universes that could not impact each other directly.
Overlapping parallel universes, basically.
Overlapping parallel universes. They are bubbles, not with no connectivity between them other than the persistent storage, which is things like where teacups are sat and where the guns are and things like that. That stuff, when the shard spins up, is pulled from the item database and pulls from the start. But there is no mechanism that they described today, and they were very, very clear that there was not communications between shard A, shard B, and shard C, that they were separate bubbles.
Is that something that's technically possible?
It's technically possible for you to build one massive shard.
Okay.
But with hundreds or thousands of servers in it. But no, I don't see with their tech how they have any ability to stream data between shard A and shard B with the way they're designing things.
I mean, it's just very disappointing because to me, the whole concept of Star Citizen is it's one persistent, continuous, everything influences everything. And what you're saying is we're going to have a different experience even if we're sitting in the same space together. And we already have that problem in the real world. So I was hoping we wouldn't have it here.
Well, again, that is based off of their very detailed presentation today. Maybe Jolly's right and they were wrong, or they were, but they were very, very specific, and they went into a lot of technical detail, and it's very apparent that was the design they were intending to tell us about.
I just have problems thinking that Eve, a game that's a decade and a half old, where I could play no matter what and link up with all my friends, We can't do that with SC.
Well, two things. Eve had time dilation, and Eve was not actually a first-person game. It was
True.
spell casting in space. So
True.
there are tricks that you can use in Eve that you cannot use in a first-person shooter-esque massive multi-game. It just, so the tricks that they use in Eve with the time dilation, where they basically slow time down so the server has more time to process everything until it can catch up, you would not be able to use that trick, and that's the only reason Eve can do it. So I was disappointed in the presentation. There were things when they initially talked about server meshing that they did not include, and they were very explicit about what they said, where they were parallel universes or parallel copies of the universe. They did not give any mechanism where the A and B and C are tied together. Shard A, Shard B, and Shard C from that presentation, unless they change it or come out with, this is going to be down, that's version 3 and version 4 is going to do this. There is not the ability for you to be able to get on and interact with any other player playing even in your time zone area. So I mean, and again, EU and all that stuff throws other monkey wrenches into this, but let's say you're all playing on an East Coast shard, there'll be multiple East Coast shards. So that's the 2 cents worth on it. And I know that's disappointing. So, Hendros, I'm going to go to you because we've ignored you for a little bit. What are your thoughts on this as I described it?
No, I think I don't know. I don't think it's going to happen. I think either maybe they were trying to be very explicit with what they were trying to say and said it wrong. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they're going to make a game of this magnitude and you're not going to be able to play on a server. I think their overall goal is going to be all of our Star Citizens play with who you want to, where you want to. Maybe the tech's just not there yet. I don't know.
Well,
I can't fathom it.
Here's the question: if the tech's there, why didn't Amazon do it with New World?
Well, no. I'm saying like with Star Citizen, like with Star Citizen wanted to do, that's where I was kind of getting at. Like maybe they said it wrong as far as getting it out there.
They didn't. They were very explicit and had graphs that showed it that way.
No, I don't see it.
I'm telling you, that's what they described. There's not wiggle room in there. So,
I believe you. It's just a matter of, like you said, if you're going to have 10,000 per server or something like that on there, I mean that might be okay. But when you look at some of the size of these orgs, they've got to be looking at that. They've got to be looking at some of these orgs and be like, oh man, well we can't give this org just one whole server or that org one whole server and leave all these small ones to fend for themselves. I don't think it's there yet. I think what they brought up today was maybe something to share with the community, but I don't think that they are there in their final step. But I get what you're saying as far as they came across and they were like, nope, this is how it's going to be. Still don't believe it.
I understand that, but here would be my argument. They're using Amazon's New World tech. What they're describing is, I went and looked, is exactly what New World is doing on Lumberyard with their technology. And what's the cap on servers there? 3,000 people-ish?
Yeah, somewhere in the 1,000.
They raised it to like 2,500, I think it was. It was 2,000 at launch.
Yeah, and they're using this exact same methodology.
But they even came back too, and they said that they were unprepared. I think CIG will be like, oh, nope, we got to make sure that we are prepared for this one.
Well, I get that, but New World's solution to that was turn up more servers that were separate, not to make the servers where they could handle 10,000 people, 20,000 people.
I mean, the big giant black hat you're putting on, Jay, is basically telling us that we couldn't have our entire org in one shard together.
Well, yeah. 7,500 members are never going to be logged in at the exact same time.
Yes, they are.
And I don't know. They may be able to expand it. Space is big. 10,000 person servers may be theoretically doable, ? but it's definitely not going to be everybody in one universe that can simultaneously do something and it affect all the other players.
Well, Jay, let's be realistic about one thing. If we get the game we're expecting it to be with multiple star systems and all that, those 7,000 people are going to be spread out across a large area, and you're not able to. There's going to be people that, so I need some people here. They may be a couple of hours or more before they can get their physical character to that section of space.
I agree completely, but when they get there, they may be in a different shard and unable to interact with your Idris.
But realistically, those 7,000 ADI members are going to be spread out how far? I mean, unless there's a really big event going on, we're not going to be even trying to group up all in one system.
No,
it's those big events that this is going to wreck.
That's the problem.
Well, and my concern is general party stuff. My concern is, Josh is out doing a mining mission, and he calls for help, and somebody an hour away gets there, and he finds out, oh, I'm not in the same shard as you. I can't help you.
There's going to have to be a way to identify.
That's what it's ultimately going to come down to, is how sophisticated is the system to do that.
Correct. And the other issue is that even if you can identify, you may have 100 people on playing, but only 15 or 20 of them are in the same shard as Josh instead of 100. And that's the bigger concerns that I see here. It's again, just going off the presentation, it's disheartening, but it is definitely not what we were initially promised with one big universe that could play together. It's not even, there's going to be EU and East Coast and West Coast, or in Australia or whatever servers, and those will be all one big universe. It's, there's probably going to, if New World is any example, and let's say they can do 4 to 5 times as many people per shard, you're talking about, on Go Live probably needing somewhere around 8 to 10 shards just in EU or just in the East Coast of the US. So, may have to party up. Tiefel, that's the question is there a way around this? But I didn't sign up for a game where I had to party up and then launch into a shard or a server to get together. That's not feasible for long-term gameplay. You need the ability for people like in New World, like in WoW, to be able to come on and party up together at will. So we're just going to have to wait and see. And I'm being Debbie Downer here. Throw rocks at me.
I mean, you're not wrong. The way you explain it and the way they presented it, it's bad. It's bad for the game. It doesn't feel good. You sign up for this. We're all in one universe. To just log in, play with friends, and then this comes out and it's like, hey, wait a second. This is not what you said it was.
Correct.
So it feels bad.
And the worst part of it is that you can't pick a server so that everybody that gets into that server is there together. It's going to use some type of algorithm, and maybe they change that part. That could still be changed. But the fact that a number of servers are going to create a shard, and there will be a number of shards, and that number of shards will dynamically increase and decrease based off of server load. That's what they described, and they were very explicit about shard A doesn't impact shard B. They're, the mineable material that you find in shard A is not necessarily in the exact same spot in shard B. That was the other part of that you guys might not have caught. So, because somebody could have gone to shard B and already gotten that mining material that you found in shard A. So it's a much bigger issue than just getting to play with your friends. It's also, if Nom's ENS guys go out and find something, we can't be sure that that's going to be there on tomorrow when we get a completely different shard at random. So, okay, I've beaten this horse to death. Josh, anything you want to add before we move on?
No, it is disappointing, and unfortunately you've had to put on the black hat, and I appreciate that. And maybe having this word spread out a little bit more, maybe people can start communicating in Spectrum and say, hey, look, this is important to us. We want this. This is what we were promised. You need to work towards it, or at least give us the option to select which shard we're going to be on.
Yep, I completely agree. Well, I think we're ready for our last commercial break. and then we'll be back to finish up the last couple of segments.
At Crusader Industries, we believe that our values are more than a standard of behavior. They're our legacy and our inspiration. We don't defend them through sheer size or firepower alone. We ally ourselves with those who share our core beliefs. We make sure the real heroes make it to where they're needed most. At Crusader Industries, we know that lifting up others benefits us all.
Hey everyone, Jose here, Star Citizen-based streamer and member of Atlas Defense Industries, the largest exclusive organization within the verse. Alongside me and as often as I can be are members of Atlas Defense Industries, and we're focused on creating and bringing enticing Star Citizen content to you via YouTube. I stream Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 2 p.m. Central on Twitch. So be sure to catch me at the next stream. You can also keep up to date with us and find my full schedule and more in the details below. And I'll see you on the other side of the microphone.
Okay. There we go. We had that on loop, guys. Apologize about that. Made some boo-boos. But, hold on. Accidentally had that commercial break on loop instead of run once. I apologize. So, Hawk, you've got the next two segments. Can you kind of give us a heads up on Sounds of Space and then roll right into some systematic gameplay stream of thought?
Sure. So for Sounds of Space, there was a lot there. There's not really a lot for us to discuss. The short version is they basically streamlined their audio production. They turned it from a production event to a post-production event. What that means is they can assign a sound to an object, and then as you move around with that object, it looks at how it's moving and generates the audio based off that. Streamlines a lot, allows them to do their development faster. Like a lot of the Planet Tech, it's a good thing. That being said, not a whole lot to dig into there. Tony Z's talk, however, he went through a lot of stuff and he went through it really fast. Some of the highlights, he talked about selling items, basically being able to loot stuff from bodies, the things we talked about earlier. Did say that some of the items you sell, that it's going to be treated like commodities as far as there being buy and sell prices that vary based off where you're buying or selling them. You also mentioned that some shops will deal in classes of items, basically like, hey, this shop deals in weapons or weapons from this specific manufacturer, and they'll be able to give you a better price on stuff like that, whereas a generic weapon shop may offer you a little less across the board. They also talked about localized inventory, no real surprises in here. Vehicle manager being restricted to vehicles in the local area. One thing they did bring up is context-dependent links. So like when you're digging through knickknacks, trying to figure out, hey, where'd I put that rifle? Instead of like rifle Horizon, it'll pop up a map and go like, you're here, your rifle's here, here's the route to get there. So that's cool. That's something that's going to be very useful from a player standpoint. One of the interesting things they did bring up was unloading and loading times for cargo. The short version is the way they're doing it, they want to look at different locations and set them up for different types of cargo. What that means is the facilities available at the location, be it cargo lifts or dudes with trolleys, and then the amount of people you can hire to load and unload your ship. They're going to have large facilities that are more facilitated for places like Hull E's, Caterpillars, things like that, that can do a lot of bulk cargo and load quickly. A lot of the smaller stuff, like the jump town of the past, where it's really small, you're going to have to carry the boxes over. It's not going to be economical for you to carry every single box onto your Caterpillar when you can just go to a large place and park the Caterpillar there, have 100 some odd people load it, and you're gone. So they're using loading and unloading times to kind of separate small scale cargo movement and large scale cargo movement, which is pretty interesting and something that needs to happen. Otherwise, biggest cargo ship is always best. Moving on from that, they talked a little bit about reputations. Basically, the way they're setting it up is there's going to be different links. Like if you're with the advocacy, they view you real well. The pirates will look at that and go, hey, you're hostile. However, if your pirates really like you, advocacy is going to be hostile toward you. This is essentially how the players who want to be pirates, this is how you be a long-term pirate. You build up your reputation with the pirate factions, which is distinct move away from crime stat, where it's like, yeah, you went to jail, you did your time, you're now free and clear, we forgot about everything else you did. So that's an interesting movement. They also talked about tying it into dynamic events, doing some mission variables where they kind of scale, and incentivizing you like how some other MMOs do, like, hey, if you get to this rank, you can go do this. So some classic MMO stuff in there, along with perks. Like if you reach a certain rank with a certain org or group in the universe, it may be, hey, pirates are no longer hostile to you, or your ship claims are expedited faster, things like that. Useful perks that kind of round out your character in ways not really available in Star Citizen compared to a traditional MMO. One of the interesting things they talked about was dynamic events and how they want that to work. Essentially, they talked about dynamic events as being an event that their backend is going to look at kind of the universe presence, and then once a certain threshold is met, it triggers and activates that dynamic event, which is really cool. It turns them into actual dynamic events as opposed to like, hey, this week we're doing this, which really great jump. They also talked about new dynamic event with Jump Town, which is basically like free items are getting produced at this place, high profit ratio, kind of use that to drive PvP. Nam, did you have any thoughts about the dynamic events as to what they showed, and any thoughts as to what we can see?
I just, as with his videos, you just, you understand some of it, but it's when you're saying dynamic event, which part are you talking about exactly?
The dynamic events like Xeno Threat, like Ninetales.
Ninetales.
Okay.
Those are the
Yeah.
things they want organically triggering in the verse based off player actions and the
Yeah.
situation.
Well, I think like that is, I think Jolly might have mentioned that on the previous Hangar Ready, was dealing with wars between factions and like Ruin Station. Who's controlling Ruin Station? So events could kick off periodically where that's great, man. That's a great end goal for this game, to have where we can have an effect on things like that happening in the game, where like one faction is trying to take over the station from the other one, and then we're knowing that a month or so down the line it'll happen again, depending on what players do to support one faction or the other. I don't really have an opinion on that yet because I haven't seen anything concrete to really comment on. It's all right now, to us, it's all a theory. But until we actually get something in game, Xenothreat's nice, but they pulled the trigger on that right now. And it's got a very defined, okay, now the event's over. And because somebody on their end manually flipped a switch. So I don't really have anything more to say about it until there's more to comment on.
I'm going to say this, and that is, I think that last segment was very long. It was very dense. It was packed through a lot of cool information, and I think that it's going to take days and weeks to unpack it, and they're looking at long-term horizon stuff, and I think that's great. I'm excited about what they're working on, but I think that, it's just going to take time for them to get it to a point where these dynamic events are kicking off automatically. And I look forward to it. I think everything that they're doing in that space is easy to accomplish, relatively speaking, from a technical perspective, and is wonderful. So,
yeah. If I can.
How much detail. Go ahead, Joe.
Go on, Joe.
Yeah, real quick. Okay, first, I think Tony Z is magnificent. Walks on water, great developer, period. Okay, so that said, his concept of cargo movement is wrong. It returns the game back to being, I'll go kill rats for a while. Most players are going to play this game 3 hours on a weekend, and you really want them to spend their time loading cargo upon something. I know right now the game is a matter of magic happens and SCU appears on a ship. Let that stay, okay? Don't let players waste their time playing a game doing that instead of actually flying off and doing something else and playing the game. So on that one, they're absolutely wrong, vehemently wrong, and that's a big screw up.
But Jolly, you're never going to get to unload the cargo because you're not going to get off the train with only 3 hours of time.
You are absolutely correct. Reputation. That's a magnificent improvement. I'm really happy they're doing that thing. I love the fact that we have within Stanton, we're going to be a matter of your Crusader security, Hearthstone security, stuff like that. You go to Pyro at some point in time in the future, then it's a matter of what's your reputation with the gangs. I love that. I think that's a big improvement. I think we'll see a change in the future at some point in time where there are two factions within SC, the Pyro faction, the Stanton faction, and will fight each other. And I love that fact. So big plus. Final thing I want to bring up is dynamic events. I love Xenothreat. I did not get a chance to play Ninetales much at all, but Xenothreat I did. I really hope to see that more of that coming back into the game itself. Good job on RSI and CI for the Xenothreat stuff.
Okay, Jolly, on the cargo thing, I would say this. I think sometimes they get so deep into what they're presenting that they're going to implement, they sometimes forget some of the details that they've talked about before. One of that is we should have the option to pay for just have it auto-loaded or something like that. They've talked about that a long time ago. I think They forgot to mention that because they're talking about the cool thing of implementing, being able to physically manipulate the cargo. But there's the trade-off being, if you do it yourself, you might be able to pack. I think not too long ago they were talking about that, where if you do it yourself, you may be able to pack more into a space. If you pay the the system some fee or whatever, the money, another money sink to load your ship, it'll be X amount of cargo in the space, but not as efficient as you could if you spent the time doing yourself. But you have that choice.
Yeah, but I'd say they screwed up a long time ago then. Good googly moogly. Just let us have, I buy cargo appears, I move on, I come back, I play the game. Gameplay is what matters in a game, not I'm trying to simulate my life.
I get what you're saying.
Here's my only argument against that, Jolly. Should it take as long to load a Pisces as it does to load a Caterpillar?
Yes. It should, exact same amount. Same amount of time, period. There should be. Why am I wasting my time, my game time? I may only have 2 or 3 hours on a weekend to play this game. Spending my time loading cargo on a pretend ship, go to a pretend area to offload pretend cargo on a pretend location.
I don't think that's what JJ's saying.
That's not what I'm saying.
There's two ways to handle this. If you have long load and offload timers and you want to do cargo primarily, you plan out your gameplay. Like, before I end, I know where I'm at. I have my cargo ship. I'm going to load it with cargo and let that timer go while I'm offline. That's something you can do. That's something other MMOs have done. And then your next gameplay session is moving that cargo and can be the offload.
It doesn't necessarily have to be that extreme.
That's so exciting. My entire gameplay experience is loading and unloading cargo. That's a failure.
Yeah.
Here's
the other
you're
option.
not actually doing it. Is what he's
I
talking
know I'm not.
Yeah.
But I'm spending time doing it.
The other option is if you take a Caterpillar, you go to a high volume cargo port with tons of people able to load that, your load time might be 2 minutes. That's not huge. If you go to small mom and pop, it might be 20.
At what cost?
That's the question. We don't have those numbers yet.
Well, but they have talked in the past about being able to pay loading services, hangar services, whatever, to do these things for you. It's all a matter of making it. It's a money sink. Well, that's the way these systems work. Is they have to have that percentage cost for the conveniences. But does that save you? Does that mean it's going to take? I'm not talking about like taking a half hour or so for them to load the cargo. It might be a matter of a couple minutes or something. But it's just a matter of. And there are other things you could be doing. Think about the time it takes to travel around an R&R station just to pick up some equipment and what all. While they're loading your cargo, you could be doing something else of value to you, like retrieving something else or managing some refinery jobs you have.
Here's my only thing. The argument that they're making, and let's not talk about the mechanics, because I think playing Tetris by hand is ridiculous. I think having the ability for the cargo to appear magically in your cargo hold is completely fine from my perspective. But if you land at a tiny little outpost and want to buy a Caterpillar worth of X, it should take longer to load, maybe not substantially longer, but longer than if you want to fill a Pisces with the same, with less cargo that goes in the Pisces. The reason for that is that if you go into a place and you're going to load up on, 300 SCU of cargo, you are a bigger target and have to be there for longer in a Caterpillar to fully fill it than if you are in a Pisces and you're just going in to grab some high value stuff and run and dash. And I think that gameplay mechanic, obviously balancing being a big issue, is legitimate. I think you really legitimately should take longer if you're at one of these small mom and pop drug labs, for example. But if you pull into and dock with or land at a big cargo terminal, that you should be able to order the cargo up, and the load time for a Caterpillar should be 60 seconds or something like that. Probably longer than it will take you to walk down to your Caterpillar. But it should be less for Pisces at that same site. It just should be quicker based on the facility size, i.e., what the workforce would be and the robotics and all that stuff. That's my opinion. Jolly.
No, I don't agree. I don't want to get up in the morning when I play SC and put on my socks and my shoes, take time to put a shirt on, and to go to the bathroom, take a shower,
take your helmet off.
I want gameplay. I don't want a real life in the damn game.
Well, I get that. I'm just saying that there should be, even if it's automatically loaded, there should be some penalty for using a larger ship at a small outpost loading wise over using a very small ship.
I think Frat gives a good example in the chat. He's talking about, look at refining right now. You can choose to refine at the most optimal, get the most out of your load, but it takes a lot more time. You come back and get it later. Meanwhile, you go out and you mine more ore. Or you can, if you need that stuff now, you can choose the quicker refining process, but you give up some profit and loss, or whatever it costs to pay for that. Some of the processes give you just as good return on materials, but they cost more. It's a trade-off of time for money there. But in the meantime, it's auto-magically doing it for you, and you can go do other things, do some bounty hunting, whatever.
Okay, and for those who haven't played 315 yet, and Gnome has, I have, keep in mind, what extra ship do you have that location to go ahead and do this?
You have to have your Liberator.
Thank you for lightening the mood there. I think ultimately we're going to have to agree to disagree on this. Jolly, I see your point in that you want as little boring parts.
Rat
killing. Yes, I agree. Hand loading stuff is ridiculous. I'm in complete agreement with that. That is a bridge too far. I just think that a loading timer isn't unrealistic, and as long as we're talking about minutes, 1 or 2 minutes for a large ship to be loaded at a large, transfer hub, that's probably not unreasonable. It's definitely less time than you're going to spend in Quantum.
And it might actually be affected by how many ships are at that same station getting loaded up.
Yeah, that's getting a little bit too far, but yeah, we'd have to.
They got a system that could do that, though.
They do. I don't know that they should adjust those knobs on.
Don't give them any ideas. Stop it.
And Joseph, do you have any thoughts on this before we move on?
No, I'm of the same opinion right there. I like the fact of, and I think CIG will probably end up making it to where, like, if you end up having like a pretty big order to to load a ship and everything like that. They've kind of hinted at that with bringing out the push carts and things of that nature. It's just, how do we get it? Where do we get it from? Like, is a forklift going to come around the back and be dropping pallets? You got to go put them on there and drop them on and things of that nature. But they're moving towards it. But it's kind of like you said, Jay. If it appears in your cargo hold, it appears in your cargo hold. But if it can take longer, that was my big thing out of all of it. But they're going to
play Tetris.
They're building on it, right? Yeah.
I don't want to have to carry that. I agree, is for sure a bridge too far. Sitting there and playing Tetris, or sitting there watching AI play Tetris.
There are people that enjoy that gameplay, though. So
I
can see them making like a pallet. Like, okay, you don't have to do it one at a time, but hey, you're gonna move this pallet right to over here.
Just give me my targeting pod. I'll be happy.
Any other comments on this before we move on? I think we're
a ton, but you can move on.
Well, no, go ahead, Charlie.
No,
we just disagree. You're on one end of the spectrum, and other people are on the other end of the spectrum, and I'm closer to you than I am them. So, hey, I'm closer to you than I am them. I'll be honest. Okay. Moving on to segment 9 in closing, and I'm writing down a number here real quick. Okay, we're going to skip the last break and just go to the end. At the end of the day, a virtual con is not nearly as much fun, and it's just as tiring. And as you could tell, Jolly wants to kill all of us at this moment. So I'm not going to spend much more on it, but I just want to recap some stuff and then go around the room. Liberator mini carrier, absolutely the best thing in my mind that came out this week or at the con today. Reminder, 400i exploration ship, $220 war pack. Very cool little 3-man. I definitely like it better than I like some of the other Connies. I don't like Connies at all. That's just my personal opinion. Definitely like the 400i better than that. But I really don't like Origin ships. Great update on the Merchantman. It looks amazing. I wish I had gotten one when they were $250. And Pyro, wow. I really wish they were launching that in 315 or 316. They need to pick up the pace. It was a great way to spend Saturday for me. And that basically, let's see what everybody else. Jolly, what were your highlights from today?
I've spent over 9 hours and 47 minutes doing this so far. I thought the Pyro update was magnificent.
Yes.
Big kudos on that one. It looks great. I know we're a ways off from seeing it, but it's a big plus to the gameplay. I love the fact of what they've done. I love the new buildings that they've come up with. I've loved the concepts of reputation there. Everything about that is a big, 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 big positive. And so that's probably my biggest plus for me personally was the information we got out of Pyro.
Okay. Hendrosa, what is your biggest plus?
I have to agree with Jolly. I loved the beginning part of it. The intro to Pyro. I don't know. I think it might be a little closer than what we think. I'm thinking it might be. I mean, I know that they keep saying 4.0 and everything like that, but we might still see maybe a couple things popping up here and there, maybe like some jump gates. I was really hoping to see something like that, implemented in 315. But hey, they got us a new ship. Can't complain. All the way. But my big thing too was, just the major support that we had from all you guys. I saw you guys all in the chat. There were a lot of names that I recognized, and I really got to give them a quick shout out there, Jay, to all the support. And this goes for everybody here, all the support and, love that ADI members give and those of the stream, especially for the 2951 commercial spot we did for the Big Bennies that actually made the reel. Everybody loved it. It's on the ADI org chat page right now, and you guys enjoy.
Yep, it is very good. Nam, your final thoughts?
A highlight for me was definitely the outpost demo where they showed them infiltrating the base in different ways and getting to see how the new modular bases are, the new modular outposts are, and what we got to look forward to there.
I love the new outposts.
Yeah, I was a little, I had hoped we were going to see a little bit, like others mentioned, seeing something on Squadron 42, and but. That's a little concerning. We haven't heard a thing about that. But I'd also hope we'd heard a little something about animals in the verse at this point. But I think that's waiting on some tech called NavMesh that determines NPCs moving around out in the open. Yep. So, but they showed that at the demo. You saw NPCs running around outside the buildings, engaged in combat. So, that's something we could see before then. I think is NPCs more mobile and more out in the open.
I can't wait until some bear comes and tries to kill me while I'm out mining.
I can't wait for that. Seriously, I'm
excited. I'm all excited about
but
more PvE opportunities.
As far as when Pyro's coming, I don't think they want to release Pyro until they have meshing. And also,
I agree.
And because they need to have jump points in, and they can't possibly render a server that's hosting both Stanton and Pyro. So what are you going to do when you jump through a jump gate? You're going to have to quit the menu and come back. They're going to have some form of meshing in before people are able to transition between the two systems.
I agree. Josh?
So to me, every time something gets explained more or I understand something deeper, it helps me clarify what I want to do in this game and where I want to go. And the first time I got in the PTU, I was super excited that I had decided to purchase a Cutlass Black and a Vanguard because the distance to be traveled became really clear about how much a small fighter is or is important depending on your mission. And today, with the clarification of the Liberator, I now have the resolute goal of liberating a lot of little outposts, taking all of their cargo, and taking all of the personal inventory of all the individuals. And I now have a razor focus on my future. So thank you, Star Citizen. I'm very happy.
I thought we were anti-pirate.
It's pirate
There's no
outpost, right?
piracy. I'm a liberator. I'm in a
They're not
liberator, and
either.
I'm
I'm a
liberating you from your cargo.
And so, Hawk, you last but not least.
I gotta agree with Josh. The high point for me was the Liberator. It solves a lot of logistics issues Star Citizen has had, and it opens up a whole lot that is just really interesting on the logistics side, on the operations side. I'm really want to get my hands on that ship, and I can't wait till it comes out.
Yep. I will say this. The big thing that I got out of today was that loot, that whole site exploitation that we're going to have to start doing in game, that I think is starting in 3.15, where we're going to have to loot bodies and snag gear just so that we can feed our addiction to, oh, I had to hit backspace and lost everything. So I'm excited about some of the stuff they showed us. Very excited about the Liberator. So guys, this completes our wrap up. My fervent goal, and I know it is for Jolly and everybody else here, is to see you in person in 2022. Hopefully, in California or Austin, depending on where they're going to do it. And we'll just have to wait and see. I probably would not make it over to Manchester if they choose to have 2022 in the UK. But I'm excited about it and looking forward. One quick reminder, we will be broadcasting Hangar Ready next Saturday at 8 p.m. Central. And we'll be going over in detail 3.15 and all the cool features. So final words, Jolly, any words of wisdom before we close out?
Some of us already, the con, we've been playing 3.15 for a while, and we intend to express everything we've learned so far, to the good and the bad. So look forward to you next weekend.
Okay. And Nom.
Looking forward to next weekend. All I can say is that get in the game. 3.15 is in the PTU if you're a concierge subscriber. Hopefully it'll go wave 2 sometime soon after that if they fix a few bugs. It's worth getting in there and learning. Pick your home carefully because all your stuff's going to be dumped there. And
either Lorville or New Babbage.
Recommendation.
I would agree. And just get in there and play around with the new mechanics, because there's a lot to learn.
Okay. Androsa.
No, I mean, everybody have a great weekend. I'm glad there was a big turnout for CitizenCon throughout the verse, and especially with ADI. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the show, and we'll see you guys next weekend.
And officially a 12-hour Star Citizen day for you and I.
That's right. Oh, man,
Yep.
I need some coffee.
Josh, any last words?
Just a 3.15 makes a lot of changes. I'm looking forward to that show next week. Death has a meaning, and inventory has a meaning, and I think you're going to have to think about what you're doing a little bit differently going forward.
I agree completely. And finally, last but not least, Soulhawk, what are your final thoughts?
Really interesting to see a lot of what they're presenting. A lot of good stuff coming. Some less than good stuff, but overall, I'd say this was a positive.
I agree. Okay, so we will see you back here next week, 8 p.m. Bye.
Bye.
Guys.
Night, guys.